Settle down, brother. This is the Quarter Report, powered by ENC.com. South Africa is a movie. Welcome to the watch party. Gayton McKenzie, technically Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, but I think it would be more accurate to describe him as the Minister of Photobombing Springboks photographs and also the Minister of Broken Promises. Because one thing that is absolutely clear as day is that in the last year and few months since he became Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, he has made a number of huge, specific promises, and he has failed to deliver on nearly all of them. In the context of the fact that, of course, there are many politicians, most of them ANC politicians throughout recent and longer-term South African history, who have made promises and failed to deliver on them. But just because the ANC has broken tons and tons and tons of its promises over and over again over many decades, does not mean that we should not hold other politicians from other political parties to account for the promises that they made, which caused people to vote for them and give them political power in South Africa. So here's just a few of the promises that we're going to work through on this episode. He promised to donate his entire annual ministerial salary of 2.6 million rand to the creation of a Joshlin Smith Foundation. 2. Abahambe. Gayton promised that the second that his party got into ruling government, that there would be mass deportation of illegal foreigners. VAR in the PSL, come not just this coming season, but come April just past, has not happened. Ending wasteful expenditure in the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. We're going to talk about reimbursing Johan van Dijk's father, about making spinning a national sport, about creating public swimming pools in every single town in South Africa. We're going to cover all of this because we need to hold all politicians to the same standard that we hold ANC politicians, DA politicians, and the rest. And normal reminders to watch the full show. If you want to watch the full show, it's on ENC.com. The link is in the description. And if you want to get merchandise to support the project of the TBN, the Three Beanies Network, there's another link in the description of the YouTube video, www.threebeaniesnetwork.com. Let's get into the many promises of Gayton McKenzie. And I just want to say, we're going to limit our promises to since he's become Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture. But he's got a long history of making controversial and probably broken promises before then. When he was mayor of the Karoo town of Beaufort West in the Western Cape, he said he would make, and this is extraordinary, he said he would make Beaufort West the Dubai of the Karoo. Now, I don't think you need to have been to Dubai or Beaufort West to know what a crazy claim that was. And he said that that would be done. And he said it would be through service delivery, fixing of potholes, whatever, and making it this kind of like business capital in the middle of the Karoo. It's like a 5-hour drive from Cape Town, depending on how much you are speeding. It's an important town in the area, but it's also far from everywhere and very small compared to many other places in South Africa. So to say that he had a plan to make it the Dubai of the Karoo just felt like fantastical advertising sales that would never be delivered. And there's a lot of controversy about the claims that he made about whether or not he fixed things. Like he claimed that he was going to end pit toilets in the Karoo. Then he claimed that he had ended them. Then even a cursory investigation discovered that they were either not ended or the fixes were shoddy and falling apart within a month or two. He claimed when he was mayor of Beaufort West that he would donate his entire mayoral salary to a variety of community betterment causes. It is very unclear that he did that because he did not provide sufficient evidence to show that he had done that. So he's done this rodeo before. Ashley Sauls followed up on Gayton McKenzie's claims of making Beaufort West the Dubai of the Karoo by basically suggesting in documentation that they change Beaufort West's name to Dubai West, which is just so mad. And this was all before the PA did well in the last national election. So just so you know, Gayton McKenzie has previous. Now let's go into some of the promises that he's made since he got into government and even in the election campaign leading up to last year's national election. So for me personally, the most egregious broken promise is about Joshlin Smith. If you have been living under a rock, she is, we hope that she's still alive, but her mother has now been convicted of selling her to somebody. This is a young child, a girl child, on the west coast of the Western Cape. And Gayton McKenzie got a lot of profile in national press for taking on this Joshlin Smith disaster, this egregious trafficking and selling of a young child personally, and saying that he would make a difference in the battle against human trafficking, particularly of children across South Africa. And he explicitly said that he would donate his annual ministerial salary of 2.6 million rand to the creation of a Joshlin Smith Foundation that would exist to try and protect and save and rescue children who were trafficked, abducted, kidnapped. He made that explicit promise to capitalize on the media storm over that trial. And then just a few months later, when followed up on, he said that they were making really good progress and the foundation would soon exist and do this work. Today, on the 17th of July, 2025, well over a year after he made these claims, and then around a year after he followed up saying that the Joshlin Smith Foundation was nearly created and would soon be operational, that foundation does not exist. And Gayton McKenzie has tried to fudge the fact that he has not donated his full ministerial salary to a Joshlin Smith Foundation for missing children by saying, oh, but he's donated his ministerial salary to other causes. Now, one, that's still breaking your promise. And your initial promise, Gayton McKenzie, to donate that 2.6 million went way further in the South African public than your, oh, by the way, I've given it to other organizations now. So you've already broken that promise and capitalized off that moment, and your attraction is not sufficient to undo the good PR public press that you got in the first place. Two, you have not provided sufficient evidence to show that you donated your full ministerial salary. You've shown some evidence. He's shown some evidence to suggest that he may have donated some money to like an art gallery and a spinning, like, a car foundation or whatever in the hundreds of thousands of rands, but not your full ministerial salary. So again, the initial, I'm going to give my entire ministerial salary to good causes, broken promise, you at least... maybe you didn't intend in the first place. You may have lied from the first place, but you've misled the South African public and you have benefited extraordinarily off of that broken promise.
I think what's also particularly galling about this is he didn't need to create the Joshlin Smith Foundation. There are other foundations that deal with this issue. You don't need to wait for it to be established. You can send the money. There are other specific places for this thing. So it is a marketing ploy.
Yeah.
Like he could have done it. He is not doing enough. Even the 400,000, whatever.
It could have gone to a missing children foundation.
Yeah.
And unlike what some of the other promises we'll get to, where maybe he could argue that he had to have to rely on others, if you can organize for your son to buy a football club to turn into the new Bloemfontein Celtic in a few months, you can create a charitable foundation. And you have not done so. You have chosen actively to not do so. I think that is such an egregious broken promise. I think it is exploitation and taking advantage of the trafficking, the sale of a young girl. And it is beyond any T's and C apply how reprehensible that is. So that's one. Two, next broken promise. Gayton McKenzie said the second the PA got into government, there'd be mass deportation of illegal foreigners. He danced on a stage at a rally like he was Beyonce, celebrating the fact that there would be mass deportation of illegal foreigners. He Abahambe his way into a significant percentage of the South African voter base voting for him, and he Abahambe his way into having enough of a constituency that voted for him to be added to the government of national unity and ultimately become Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture. But he explicitly said that if the PA was going to be in government, there'd be mass deportation of illegal foreigners. He made it his entire identity, his entire offering, his entire reason for you to vote for him is that once they were in government, and not just, and he didn't qualify it. He wasn't like, once the PA gets some like 50% plus one majority and can rule South Africa on his own. He said, no, the PA is going to get into government and have mass deportation of illegal foreigners. Now, again, whether you want that to happen and support the Abahambe idea, the mass deportation idea, or you're against it, he used his voters by making that promise to them and has absolutely not delivered on it. He has done nothing in the GNU to try and get the other GNU partners to get together and do mass deportation of illegal foreigners. He has taken advantage of the people who he sold a dream to and then sold them out to get personal enrichment in the GNU. 3, VAR in the PSL, video assistant refereeing, because Gayton once again discovered or realized that there was a vast group of soccer-loving fans, like rugby-loving fans, who he could impress upon that he was doing good. And he promised there would be video assistant refereeing in the Premier Soccer League, not just by this coming season, which is about to start, but by April past at one point. And now he says, we're still working on it. We're still trying to do it. We're still trying to put it together. No, Gayton McKenzie, you don't get to make promises as the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture that something will happen by a specific date, that it will happen by another later specific date, that it will happen by the start of a new season, and then not deliver on it. You don't get to make those promises and get away with it. Clearly broken promise. And that leads to, for me, an even worse broken promise. Because another thing that he did a lot when he started as Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture is he said that he would root out wasteful expenditure in all the different sports, arts and culture bodies. He decided that they would publish a list of all of the different artists who got COVID relief funding, but he specifically promised that there'd be no more wasteful expenditure, no more silly unnecessary trips from ministers, no more silly unnecessary funding disasters involving SASCOC, which is the Olympic Committee, and objectively a hilarious name, SASCOC. It's lovely. Laugh about it. Jokes in the comments. He said that he would root all of that out. It was a big shtick that he sold to the South African public, which is why it was fascinating that he then went on a week-long trip to the Olympics in Paris. He spent over 800,000 Rand on a week at the Olympics. Now, we need to talk about this Olympics example because it's really, really staggering. Okay, so over 800,000 Rand. Over 215,000 Rand spent on just flights. Now, at the time, we covered this on the Dan Corder show on ENCA. We had investigated how much flights from South Africa to Paris cost at the time for business class to first class. It was between 18 and 30,000 Rand a flight. How did he get to 215,000? Maybe he took a delegation of 5 or 6, but we don't know who that delegation was. And honestly, he would then have to justify to us why he took all of those extra people. But that's how much he spent on flights. Then he said that he was specifically getting a hotel near to the Olympic Village to cut down on costs. The hotel bills, and by the way, this is non-controversial. This has all been scrutinized and worked through in Parliament, the official expenditure of this trip. The hotel bill was 113,000 Rand for 6 or 7 days. Again, I know it's Paris. You did not have to stay at such an expensive hotel. But the most egregious part is that they spent 454,000 Rand on transport. I thought you got a hotel near to the Olympic Village. Weren't you pretending to us that you were going to run a marathon? Couldn't you have walked? Couldn't you have got your discovery miles or whatever, your discovery points? 454,000 Rand, over half of the budget or close to half of the budget on just transport. Now, Uber in Paris to the Olympic Village cannot cost that much. And we, again, on the Dan Corder show at the time, went and looked at a luxury car rental site in Paris to figure out what we could spend, what we could get for an expenditure of 454,000 Rand over a week in Paris. And we found Ferrari SF90 Stradale. Did I pronounce that correctly? Is it an elite car? Is it like a cream of the crop elite car?
Yeah, this is this would stand out in Santon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a Ferrari SF90 Stradale for 1 week in Paris at the time that Gayton was there would have cost us 334,000 Rand, which is a Ferrari SF90 Stradale plus 119,000 Rand change. Because remember, they spent 454,000 Rand. And then we went back to our luxury car rental site and we found something called a Maserati Grand Cabrio, which he could have rented on just the remaining 119,000 Rand in change from the Stradale. So for 454,000 Rand, if you were in Paris at the time of the Olympics, you could have rented a Ferrari SF90 Stradale and a Maserati Grand Cabrio for the amount of money that they spent on ground transport that week. Those two cars together have seating for 6 people. So let's assume that he took 6 people or less. I'd be amazed if he took more than that. Again, he would have to justify why he took all these extra people. They could have got 2 of the most unnecessary cars. So unnecessary. That's how they would have been able to spend all of that money. There is no justification for this amount of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. None. And even though it's only 800,000, and there are a bunch of other ways that like the Sports, Arts and Culture Department has spent a ton this last year in ways that many people think are unjustified. This is such a perfect example of a broken promise, because to spend 454,000 Rand as part of 800,000-ish Rand on a week gallivant to the Olympics that you did not have to be at, while at the time there were Olympians spending their own money to get to the Olympics. While at the time, there were South African athletes who had self-funded their careers because the Sports, Arts and Culture Ministry plus SASCOC, the Olympic Committee, has so failed all of these South African athletes, and you don't need to take my word for it. Go and listen to some of our greatest runners, some of our greatest athletes talk about how they were failed by the Olympic Committee and have had to forge their own careers on their own dime and take out loans and go into debt and be semi-pro and have day jobs just so that they can survive and compete. While all of that was happening, your sports, arts and culture minister who said he would cut out all the fruitless and wasteful expenditure was spending 454,000 rand on transport at the Olympics. Signed off. And he can't outsource responsibility for that. He can't outsource responsibility when that was his actual promise to the South African people. Absolutely broken promise.
I think what's particularly so irritating about all of this is A, that it works. Like to the average South African, a lot of people heard about the spinning thing. A lot of people heard about the Joshlin thing. But secondly, it's the fact that he just lies. It's the fact that all this stuff, they're just bold-faced lies. And he claims he's going to be the guy who's going to cut wasteful expenditure. He claims he's going to be the guy who fights, kicking human beings out of the country. He claims all these things and he just doesn't do it. And it's the cognitive dissonance, which I just think is so frustrating. It's the fact that he just keeps saying stuff and you just keep going, but you don't and you can't and you didn't. But that just doesn't stop him.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Right. And again, many politicians do this and behave in this way. But we're holding all politicians to the same standard on this show. We're not doing whataboutism here. I've spoken at length for years in my career about ANC failures and about DA failures and about EFF and MK failures.
John Steenhuisen's Blue Light Brigade.
100%. We've spoken about all of this. We are holding everyone to the same standard. So now, speaking of athletes who did phenomenally well, Joanne van Dijk, as she was known then, now Joanne du Plessis, is a South African track and field athlete. She's a javelin thrower, one of the best in the world. She's a 2-time Olympian, and she got silver at our last Olympics, which was the Summer Olympics where Gayton was gallivanting. And Joanne van Dijk got next to no support from the official sporting Olympic bodies in South Africa, overseen by the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture. And yes, this was before Gayton's time, for sure. But Joanne van Dijk, through her father basically funded her career and went into debt to make sure that she could afford to compete, go and get training, compete in the big tournaments, travel to all those tournaments. Joanne van Dijk was one of less than a handful of South Africans who won a medal at the last Olympics. Less than a handful. Akani Simbine did a lot to help all of us and the 4x100 relay team. And there were a couple of others. But Joanne van Dijk was one of our very few, and she got silver. She came second at the Olympics. Second best javelin thrower in the world. And so Gayton McKenzie saw that Joanne van Dijk wasn't properly financially supported by the powers that be in South Africa that are supposed to be spending money to develop our Olympians and support our track and field athletes. And he said, I promise I will make sure that her father is compensated for all the money that he spent where Joanne should have been supported by these official bodies. I will make sure that her father is compensated. I promise you. And he got a lot of love across South Africa, in the media and South African society, for doing the right thing of compensating this dad who had gone out of his way and spent a lot of his own money so that his daughter could become a South African icon, an Olympic silver medalist, and a champion of our people. I'm sure you know what happened next, even if you don't know from actually the news, but you know from this video what happened next. Gayton comes out a little while later and says, oh no, there was a miscommunication on this matter. I will not be insisting that we compensate Joanne's father. Same playbook, same nonsense. Cool. Let's get into the final two that we're going to cover. The final two are, you'll remember, Giddy Gayton, straight after becoming Sports, Arts and Culture Minister, said that he would make spinning a national sport, a recognized and well-considered sport. It was his personal mission that he would do so. And he got a lot of love from the car community and a lot of confusion from Santon and Constantia housewives because they heard spinning and thought, oh, that's nice. Stationary bike riding in Virgin Active is going to be a South African sport now. Maybe we can compete. And then a lot of South Africans discovered what spinning really was. Since that time, it is unclear what, if anything, Gayton McKenzie has done to recognize spinning. He may have donated a little bit of his own money to one or two car foundations. I mean, spinning is a South African art form for which more and more people around the world, including like Red Bull, are recognizing certain great South Africans. Spinning is this very specific, epic South African thing, right? That we should be proud of and the world is recognizing.
A huge thing is Red Bull is now taking it overseas with people like Sam, got featured in the Red Bull push for Formula One, which we will talk about later. And then there've been spinners taken to Austria to perform in certain places. It's really becoming, it's kind of mirrors the same way that Amapiano has been taken to the world, and by South Africans, which is really important.
Wasn't there a series on Chinese television about spinning?
Oh, there've been a bunch. Amazon Prime did a history of spinning thing. There was Spinners, obviously, on Showmax. It's really organically becoming a massive, massive thing.
But that's the key, organically. Because what has Gayton McKenzie done for spinning? I'm asking you. This is an empty, that's not rhetorical. This is an empty part of the show where I'm looking at you and I'm saying, go to the comments and tell me what you think or what you know Gayton McKenzie has done for spinning.